Welcome to Signs of Life, the show where we find hope in the headlines. My name is Chase. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined by, of course, Montana and Serena.
Hey.
Serena is about to just lay down right there.
I am. Just could collapse.
Ready to get this child out soon enough.
Yep, soon enough. Baby Noah.
Baby Noah. Baby number 3 on the way. Next week. Next week?
Yeah.
2 weeks from now.
Week and a half.
Week. Crazy.
Week and a half. You got plenty of time. He'll be fine.
Okay, my water could break right now. So
That'd be exciting.
that'd be dramatic.
On live
In addition to the drama that we're going to talk about.
The hope in the headlines is that Noah was born today.
Yes.
That's the hope. Well, did y'all see the Oscars?
What? The Oscars? No way.
It's crazy to talk about because everybody else is
Everyone's
talking
talking about the Oscars.
But it was a big deal. And in case you didn't see it or don't have a smartphone, decided to go flip phone
Under
for
a rock.
a week. Yeah. The Oscars were great, sure, whatever, but nobody really cared about the Oscars. They cared about Will Smith walking up on stage and supposedly, because it's up for debate, I think, still.
I don't think it's up for
That's
debate
up
at
for
all.
debate.
If he slapped him or not.
What?
Yeah, some people are like, I think it was staged.
Oh my God, no
PR
way.
event.
Okay, no. He slapped Chris Rock
Yeah, it did.
while
Right?
Chris Rock was presenting an award.
I think his award, like Will Smith's award.
No.
No,
It
it's
wasn't.
a
really?
different time. Yeah.
No.
Fake news. That's the rumors are spreading.
Exactly. Slapped him. Why did he slap him?
Right in the face. Because he had made a joke about Jada. Chris Rock did. Some joke
Will Smith's
about
wife, yeah.
Yeah, about what is alopecia, right? Is that how you say it? Yeah. It wasn't specifically tied to that, but referencing
Her hair.
that she did not have hair. Yeah. And Will Smith kind of laughed about it for a second, but then the camera like panned to Jada and you could see her like not
See, but I feel like
having
it was one of those situations because the joke was G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it, Jada, but she's recently shaved her head. And she shaved her head because of alopecia and autoimmune disease and all of that. And so I feel like it was more like everyone's saying that Will laughed and then saw Jada and then decided, oh no, I
reacted.
need to be like macho guy and stick up for my wife. But I feel like it's like in the moment you're like expecting to laugh, like ha ha ha. Oh wait, that was not okay.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
It's just like a gut reaction.
Yeah.
You laugh when someone is saying
Like
something.
Chris Rock is telling a joke and he pointed out Jada, and then it like hits you.
Boom.
Yeah.
Like, oh wait, that was not okay. And
Yeah.
then walked up there, and
Wham.
yeah,
Like, but
Yeah.
his walk was so calm, and then just like,
yeah,
and like for me as a therapist, I see that just like, oh, look at how premeditated that is. Like, because like a slap,
way up
like
there?
you gotta walk up there first, and then you also have to pull back, which is like all these opportunities to not react, right? Like, and so you gotta really think, am I gonna do this? And then am I gonna do that?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
See, I think it was different. I think once he stood up, he had made that decision.
He committed.
And then he went into man mode, where he's like,
Man
if I
mode.
run with this aggressive look, then he's going to run or defend himself. If I walk, he's going to be like, what's he doing? And then next thing you know,
bam.
you've made contact with his cheek.
Which
So-
is all
I know it's
premeditation.
not
Still
really funny, but
premeditation,
it's
yeah.
kind of funny. Right? Like I know it's not funny. Like it I know.
What's funny about it, Montana?
It's just so shocking.
I remember watching it, which I'm sure all of us
Yeah.
sat and we were like, oh.
Like,
oh,
did
is this
that
real?
really happen?
Yeah.
That's why I think.
And then he
people-
started yelling after
Yes.
with curse words
Profanity.
about, not putting his wife's name in your mouth. Don't make jokes about her. And
yeah.
that's when I think everyone was like,
Oh, this is real.
We
And they
Yeah.
cut
talk
the.
about Jada.
yeah. Lots of
was a good
memes.
one.
That means so
was
many.
And I think
classic
what I
memes.
kept seeing people talking about is like, was it right or wrong? Was he right? Pick your side. But I think like that doesn't matter. Like violence in any capacity,
Form, right.
is wrong. I think what's been interesting is to really look at like us as humans and this situation. And there's, a few things that I see in this story, in this situation that I think inform and educate and hopefully for us, challenge us to reflect. The big thing obviously is being a celebrity is hard, right? And I think, you see celebrity, you see everything about their life, about their children, which is like a whole nother element
true.
that as a parent now, like I want to protect my children at all costs. You see all of the flaws, but you see all the great things and that they're celebrated. And I think you say like, oh, celebrity is hard. And we think, well, that's hard. That's not going to be us. But then you think about our world that we've built for ourselves with social media, where everyone is trying to gain more followers. Like that's kind of part of the deal.
Yeah,
Is like
yeah.
get more eyes on your stuff, even if it's just personal stuff, it's just fun stuff, or if it's some capacity a business piece of you that's wanting to grow your influence. And so, at some level, I think most people say, "Oh, I don't want to be a celebrity." But at the same time, like the notoriety that comes with that, the benefit that comes with that, of course people would want that.
Right.
But there's a downside to that too, where everything's in the spotlight. And every moment you have a weakness, a piece of you that's a downfall, something that you do wrong, is going to get blown up and clearly talked about on podcasts, news
Slice of
networks,
life.
global things, everything. And so I look at that and I think, man, like that's a tough world to live in,
Yeah.
where you're just constantly in the spotlight.
Yeah, and I don't think that our original design is to be worshipped,
Right.
right? And so when we put ourselves in these, the desire to be bigger and have more followers and gain more influence, like there's a lot of influence and a lot of things, great things that can happen from that. But man, there's a lot of risk of that toxicity and the downfall of that, and what that can also bring in. That being idolized is not our natural design.
Yeah. And we see that, like, we're not going to talk about today, it needs a whole nother time, but this Hillsong documentary's come out, and especially within the church world, like that is not the design, that is not the goal, that is not beneficial, but yet we, like you said, we have a tendency to want that.
Yeah,
I think
it's very alluring.
Yeah, I think it's the picture of King David and King Saul in the Bible, where they wanted a king. Like the Israelites wanted a king. They wanted someone to put out in front that could be a leader for them on the ground, where they could literally look and see someone and say, that's our leader.
Right.
It's this desire to have someone who defends you, but not some invisible God, like a visible God.
Sure.
And so we look for people who do bring us benefits, who do help us in our life, and we may not say, well, that's our king, but we turn them into that. We turn them into, ultimately, in a way, an idol.
Yeah.
And I think, the Hillsong documentary shows that in the church world. Just celebrities in general shows that in the real world. We watch a movie and we appreciate the work and the art and the entertainment of it, but then we say, well, I want to be like that person, and I want to buy the things they're buying. And it's easy for us, I think, to say, well, we don't do that, but all of us do that. It doesn't matter who you are, male, female, age, any of that. We all find those people.
Right. Whether it's a celebrity or not, it can just be one of your friends or a mentor type. Like, we naturally place people to this higher position. And I think, like, especially in Will Smith, like, someone who has done a lot of good, like, we see a lot of good things, a lot of people love him. This mistake maybe is even highlighted more because of that.
Sure.
Because it was like, Will Smith, like, no way. Like, that couldn't have been Will Smith doing.
You sure it wasn't Kanye?
Right, literally. Like, it's, so, I don't know.
Right. Well, and I think, too, that we have been given a unique lens because Jada has the Red Table Talk, or is that what it's called? Red, something like that. And they're really vulnerable, right? And they've been very open with a lot of different things and topics that they talk about within their own personal relationship, and so we feel like we know them, and we feel like we have this access to, like, have these personal insights. Oh, Will did this and Will did that, and there's things that that we do have because they've given that to us, right? Like in Will's memoir, he talks about how when he was younger, as a child, he witnessed his mom being abused and feeling like a coward because he couldn't do anything about it, right? And feeling like a coward because he couldn't defend his mom. And then I look at this situation, and someone's publicly hurting his wife with words, verbally, and then taking that up. And so in this conversation, it's not, I really want to spotlight the fact that, like, the role of that emotion there, and what was really charging that, and the need that Will had in the short term, but also in the long term, or I'll say versus the long term, because in the moment, we know that emotions direct us to our needs. If there's heartbreak, that heart needs something. If there's an anger, emotion that's fueled with passion to protect, whatever it may be, like that heart needs something, right? That it's directing us somewhere. And in the short term, I think Will thought that's to protect his wife in this way, right?
Well, and I think too, even with that, like, there's, like you mentioned earlier, this kind of laughing at the beginning of that joke and then catching himself maybe, and then maybe feeling that feeling of, I've got to swing so far over this way to combat, whatever people might say, or that, oh, I kind of laughed at it not realizing what it was about, so I need to go over the top to go do something right now about it. And the one thing I know to do is take physical action, and so I'm going to slap. Like,
but I don't think that's the one thing he knows to do. I think that was pure emotion.
Sure.
That was pure reaction of defense.
But the one thing in that moment, and like you said, based off of his, this memoir of his own words of coming out of, that moment of watching that with his mom and saying, man, and if I could go back and do something in that moment, I think the thing would be to step in with a physical action.
Which was displaced here in this situation, right? And so, but the long-term need more so being, I think, more effective and would be more helpful in the moment is if we could consider that, if Will could have considered that, of being like known and understood and taking a step to speak for Jada or Jada speak for herself and having a conversation with Chris on the side or whatever it may have been. But, we can't recreate that moment, right?
And I would love to know even what she thinks, because
well, she did tweet. She did make a statement yesterday. She said she's here for, it's a season of healing and she's here for it. That was her remark on it. And so, after Will posted his apology, she wrote that, I believe, yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I just think about times even in our relationship where I've wanted to go over the top because I felt like I needed to make this grand gesture of love, which is kind of even what Will said later, 20, 30 minutes later when he accepted that speech, was he wants to be this vessel of love, and he did this kind of in the name of love. But like you're saying, I think most of us were saying, well, I would never get in a situation where I need to slap someone. Maybe not, but we get in a situation where we react, we don't respond. Like, we say something really quick and then wish we didn't. We send the email too fast before letting it just kind of marinate and say, maybe I shouldn't say that.
We lash out.
Yes, there's lots of things. And so I think this feels like this, isolated incident that will never be us, when the truth is, like you said, it's always us. Like, there's a short term versus a long term, benefit, and what may feel good in that moment right there to do that thing, or, react that way. That is a way, but there may be a better way, that is to slow down, to respond. I love those words, react, respond. They're very different. And, one is that kind of initial, thing that comes out of us that we want to do that most of the time is not, thought through, and it's not calculated.
Helpful.
And it's, And so I think about, that kind of that sort of thought. And then I think about even words that I've tried to, apply in my life, and it's things that I've seen, the way that Jesus has lived in the Bible, and this kind of famous line with him of, if someone offends you, if someone strikes you, turn the other cheek and let them do it again. Like, don't lash back out. And that's hard. Like, I don't know about y'all, but
easier said than done.
but especially as a man, like, I feel like that's hard because I want to defend myself, and I want to, eye for an eye kind of thing.
Well, even as a female, I think that even females have this tendency that we have to be non-aggressive. We have to be more passive and more meek, and if we raise our voice or if we say something, assert ourselves, that it's we're deemed as really hostile, and we're losing our
that you don't want to say right now.
Yeah,
It
starts with a B. And we get deemed this really negative thing, and when it's like, why is that any different from a guy? We have emotions, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're spending a whole lot of time talking about Will, but on the topic of reacting versus responding, like, we've got to highlight Chris. Because Chris has, he responded. Like, he could have easily just fought back. He could have reacted. Because what I've been hearing a lot about Chris is he's in his own process of growth and therapy and everything else. And he's like, man, I used to be ashamed of my anger. So much so that when he was the smallest of all his brothers, but he was the oldest. And there was times when growing up, he would react very violently, and he was then became ashamed of his anger, right? And so you see him in this moment knowing a little bit of what he's been through with his emotions and growing in that way, and him not reacting. Like how much self-control, how much that was like Christ that we're not talking about.
Right, true. That's a good
You
point.
know, like that's the hope that, hey, even though you may have had this history and this background, and your relationship with emotions is evolving, and you're on national television, everyone's watching, how are you going to react? Because a grown man named Will Smith just slapped this out of you, right? Like, and he didn't react. And even when he was being yelled at by Will, he honored him in the sense of saying,
okay.
I won't talk about Jada. And he could have argued, he could have done a million other things, right? And so I think we really need to really amplify that, because we're talking a lot about Will, and there's hope in that, that we're not our mistakes, so we're not defined by what we do and what we wish we
weak
wouldn't
moments,
have done in those moments, right?
For
but
sure.
also, man, Chris, like, he deserves an applause. He deserves to be honored in that, because that took a whole lot of discipline and regulating on his part. That you could say he was just in shock. He was this, he was that. But
I think he was, yeah.
But in the moment, like, he still had
Either way,
options.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He still had
Sure.
options to react.
Yeah.
And-
I don't personally think I would go as far to applaud him. I do think he was shocked. I do think it was wrong, but at the same time, you know, it's like you saying those things and there being a reaction, like that's the reality of the world as well. And I agree, like, yes, he could have chased Will down. We could have had a whole brawl right there, and we didn't. But I think the bigger thing I look at in this whole deal, and as we kind of wrap this up, is really this principle of, you know, us sitting here, they're not here, they don't know us, we don't know them. You know, it's easy for us to cast judgments or have opinions or whatever, but the reality of all of it is, like, none of us are without fault. None of us are without...
whether we're the offender or the offended.
Exactly. We've been in both spots. We probably are in both spots every day in some capacity, but...
And at the same time.
yeah, I mean, and so, you know, I think learning how to not cast stones, learning how to, you know, and that's the tension, like, call out the bad, like, to hold people
it
accountable to what's right, to what's, you know, just, but at the same time as well, finding that grace as well for them.
Yeah.
You know, how to live in that tension, and I feel like it's a constant tension. It's never solved. But I just think about that for all of us, everyone listening and watching, like, you know, we've all casted stones, and we've all been the ones having stones cast at us. And so what does it really look like, you know, for us to live with grace and for us to consider before whether we're reacting or before we even say something that could cause a reaction. You know, I think about that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and just the fruit that is in Jesus, which is that he gives us the ability to have self-control, you know, and to be held accountable when we mess up, to own up to what we have done right and wrong, and to apologize, whether that apology comes in the moment or 24 hours later. You know, like in this situation, that's hope filled, and that's good news. Is that he does draw us into those good things, right?
Yeah, I think about the story of Peter, and it kind of the kid story. I remember growing up in church and hearing it of, you know, when they come to arrest Jesus and Peter cuts the guard's ear off, and I always thought it was at such a specific area that he swung his sword to cut his ear off. But anyway, the point of Jesus, like, calling Peter out about it, like, hey, like, they're doing their deal, and he heals the guy with the ear, which is also crazy, and it's like, okay, so this guy received the healing he needed, Peter got the calling out he needed, But just a few days later, like Peter's sitting there on the beach with Jesus, and Jesus is saying, "Hey, you still have a purpose. Like, take care of my sheep. Like,
good.
you're forgiven. Take care of my sheep. Go and do your job. Go and do what you're called to. Go and live out your
focused.
purpose."
Yeah.
And I think that's for all of us. Sometimes we're the guard. When we get our ear cut off, we're the one who is attacked, and there is healing in that. And sometimes we're Peter, and we got to get called out. But at the end of the day, we all still have a purpose. We all still have a calling on our life. And these little mistakes, these big mistakes, they don't derail us from that calling. And they might in some places, they might in some jobs, they might in some careers, they might for some other people. But at least in what I've
Our
experienced in
identity
my
in
life,
Christ, for sure.
when I have rooted myself in who Jesus is and the calling he has, like, no matter when I'm going to mess it up or how big it's going to be, there's still the ability to come home again.
Yeah, that's good.
So, hey, thanks for joining us today. Make sure you're following us on our social pages. We get to continue these conversations there and ask more questions. And so make sure you're following us there on Instagram, on TikTok, and Facebook as well if you're there. And of course, subscribe, like this, and share it with someone. And we will see you next time on Signs of Life.